Hi, welcome to Matters of the Heart and Soul. I'm your host, Janie Charlot. Matters of the Heart and Soul is a podcast to raise awareness and awaken humanity to all that is within. We want to be a beacon of light on your life journey. Hi, welcome to Matters of the Heart and Soul podcast. I am your host, Janie Charlot, and I am co-hosting with Russell Bruce.
Hello, world.
So on today's episode, we are talking about the Great Awakening or the Mass Awakening of Humanity. And Russell and we're just going to kind of have a conversation about it on this episode. We're going to kind of get into some things, especially with everything that's occurring. We're going to be talking about the third eye, the pineal gland, melanin, what is a spiritual awakening, signs that it could be happening to you, and why at this point it's important to recognize what is occurring in your life. So, where do you want to start, Russell?
Well, let's jump right into, some of the signs and things of that, like signs of the time, basically, that indicate that there's a mass shift going on. So I'm sure right now everybody's feeling the craziness of COVID-19 and the information war that's going on social media, on CNN, Fox, etc., which at this point now I'm sure everybody's like thoroughly confused unless they have chimed within or have been following the trends over the years to see that right now we're really just at the apex of something that's been ongoing. This didn't just happen overnight. So some people believe that this is a natural occurrence, and then there's others that believe that it's an unnatural occurrence, that it's a man-made virus, and that possibly there are those who want to depopulate the earth to the point where it's more manageable for them to maintain their wealth and their riches and kind of chip up the rest of the people and use them as some type of cyborg slaves for the duration. So one of the signs of a mass awakening, like back in 2012, everyone talked about the calendar that came out of South America or Central South America, the old Mayan calendar that ended at 2012, and that we were going into this new age, or some people were in fear that the world was going to end. But in studying the ancient Mayan culture and calendar and the Egyptian calendar, time is actually calculated on a larger scale. Like, for example, our years are based upon 365-day cycles, right? And the ancient calendar is based upon a 25,920-year cycle. And so what does that actually look like? So if you drew like a big circle on a piece of paper and you broke that down into 12 different ages or 12 astronomical gates or zodiac signs, which people refer to them as today, right? Each one of those ages was 2,160 years. So you get 2,160 times 12, you get the 25,920 year cycle. So the significance of 2012 is that it was the end of this mass 25,920 year cycle. And that cycle is based upon not our planet going around the sun, but our whole solar system and our sun going around a central sun, which is the Sirius star system. That was out last night. I seen you made a post about that. So that's like the central sun, that our star system or our sun and our solar system goes around Sirius star system every 25,920 years. That was considered a great year or a Sothic year. So things are cyclical in nature. So the whole thing about global warming, all of these things, people are pushing as if this is a new phenomenon. This is not new. These are things that have occurred throughout history. But the thing is, not all groups of people were on the planet when it occurred the last time, so it's new to them. So it's that's another story for another day we could delve into. But
well, just let's talk about that just for 1 minute though.
All right.
So if we're going into a new time, it's important to know what we're coming out of and then where we're headed. That's very important,
Okay.
right? So let's talk about what we're coming out of and the time that we're coming out of, and then where we're headed, and how that all makes sense for a mass awakening of humanity right now.
Okay. So we're coming out of an asleep period where the masses of people on the planet have gone to sleep, right? And not sleep that everybody's sound asleep, but a spiritual sleep.
And a reality sleep, a consciousness, like,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And the thing is, let me touch on one more thing. Like, according to the Gregorian calendar, it's 2020. But if you look back at the Ethiopian calendar before it was changed, it's really 2012 now in 2020. So this is really when that cycle ended and we were going into the new cycle. So it sounds woo-woo and it sounds non-biblical and all this other stuff, but if you really study history, the stories in the Bible and everything were taken out of these ancient calendar stories, out of the ancient Egyptian texts. Don't get mad at me. Do your research. Prove me wrong, and I would love to have that conversation with you.
Well, it's not a matter of proving anyone wrong. That is a part of the Great Awakening. It is awakening to realities that you did not know. Awakening to knowledge and wisdom that you were not aware of before.
True. Very true.
You get what I'm saying?
Right. But even Scripture talks about this Great Awakening. So in Revelation, right, it talked about, that there would be wars and pestilence in diverse places, like wars, rumors of wars and pestilence in diverse places, and, plagues, etc. Like a lot of things that we see going on now. And, it's all playing out. But historically, these ancient cultures also talked about this time as well. So it's like science, archaeology, biblical texts, ancient manuscripts that were found, they all talked about a period where humanity would wake up and come back into this oneness. So let's kind of break it down in smaller fragments to help it make a little bit more sense. Like, so on our smaller scale of our Earth going around the sun every 365 days or 365 and a half days, you have these 12 months. So it's just a smaller version of the big Sothic year, right? So you hear people talking about zodiac signs. Well, I'm Capricorn and I'm Virgo or whatever. Or even looking on some of the globes that are made. If you look, they have a Tropic of Capricorn and a Tropic of Cancer, things of that nature, because it was based upon astronomy. Astrology is something totally different, where people are saying your lucky number is 7 and the lotto number and your lucky number, that's totally different. That's marketing, somebody trying to make money. But astronomy is a true science, right? Because that's how people determine where we are in the universe and the galaxy, etc., right? So we are at that time where things change.
Yeah.
And here's, or even for the people who are astute on the Bible, when they ask Jesus, they say, how do we know the coming of the end of the world? But really, it goes back to the end of the age.
The end of the age. And we're moving into the Aquarian age out of the...
We're coming out of Pisces, right? And that's where the fishermen of men, and the Catholic Church symbol was the fish, right? So they asked Jesus, how do we know the coming of the end of the world or age? He says that you will enter the gate and a man will greet you bearing a pitcher of water. That's the symbol of Aquarius. So the Bible itself is a astrotheological text.
Yeah. So it's good to know that, if you're thinking, okay, the end of the world is more of an end of a time.
End of a time.
And that the times are changing, and we're leaving a Pisces, which is based on I know Aquarian is more based on technology and information based. So we're gonna get a lot of that going, a lot more of information, and I think it's also moving into a knowing, age of knowing
instead of belief. We're coming out of an age of belief to knowing.
Yes.
Like for example, if you're getting ready to jump on a plane and fly from here to Hong Kong, you don't want to believe. You don't want the pilot to say, "I believe I can get us there." You want him to know that he can get you there, right?
Yeah.
So the whole thing is,
which makes sense because if we're moving out of an age of belief, which is a lot of things outside of ourselves, which was a lot of what the age was based on, right? I believe I can set this goal and achieve it and do all the stuff that I have to do. Now it's like a knowing. You go internal, and that's it. You don't have to do a whole lot. You just know.
True. And I think a lot of it is because the way that spiritual information has trickled down over, say, the past few thousand years, right? Because we actually have people today who believe that God stopped giving man and woman the gift of prophecy, right? So we read about all the great prophets and so forth in the Bible, and the Bible starts 4004 BC and goes through Jesus' death and resurrection, and the prophets slightly after that. But it's like we know that man was here prior to that, what determined his salvation or her salvation. And then once scripture stops, God still continued to send prophets to different lands for different reasons, right? Mm-hmm. Like whether it was a group of people being enslaved in Egypt or America per se, or you have Babylon boasting how it could set sail all its ships and no other nation can conquer it, and then you had Sodom and Gomorrah. You had all of these things, and then you look at America and you look at China and Russia and things of that nature, and you look at Revelation. You have a lot of the rabbis and different religious leaders and so forth trying to determine, okay, where are we at now, in history.
Right.
And right now, myself, I'm really kind of, I don't understand why a lot of these religious leaders are kind of silent on Revelation when it references the mark of the beast. And there's a lot of things going on in the media. Now, if it is true, and we're there, and it seems like that could be an option where they're trying to offer this ID 2020, etc. So let's just hypothetically say that is true. Why is the religious community quiet about that? It's like, where are these leaders at that are stepping up saying no so that the masses of people don't get led down the wrong direction?
I believe that there's a mass awakening, and just because you have been a religious leader in one particular way for so long, so many years, you yourself can awaken to, wow, I've been asleep the whole time. True. Possible, right?
That's a possibility.
Yeah. So that could, I'm not saying that's happening across the board, but if anything, religious leaders should be definitely going within and figuring out what is really occurring, because everything's changing. It is the change. It's a complete change. So everything is changing. Like we said, we're going to a knowing. So they also have to change with the times as well.
True.
So let's talk about if you're on track and if you are awakening, and as the times are saying, and let's talk about that. Are you dead asleep while all this is going on? So what's the first sign that you would say?
One of the first signs is you begin to see what most people may refer to as coincidences. But we're finding out now that there's no such thing as a coincidence, that there's synchronicities.
Yep.
And what is a synchronicity? And I think most people have done this without even knowing. Mm-hmm. You're thinking about somebody, they call you.
Yep.
You're looking at social media at someone's page and they call you. It's almost like the energies are connected.
Yeah. Mine is numbers.
Yours is
I
numbers.
could look at the clock. It's 4:44. It's 10:44. 11:44. Is 4:44. For months, I was waking up at 4:44 in the morning. Crazy synchronicities. Crazy.
And mine is 11:11. I was born on 11:11.
Yeah.
So it's like throughout the day, whenever I'm just looking at my phone or something might pop up and I go, oh, I need to make a call, and I hit my phone, it's 11:11.
Yep. I could be driving, I'm behind somebody's car, their license plate, 444.
444.
Yeah. I pump gas, the gas stops at 44.
Right.
So synchronicities is a big one.
Let me say this though, with numbers, to me, it's kind of enlightening because in the field that I work in, network engineering, when it comes to IP addressing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We might see like 172.16. Whatever, right? But that's translated from a binary code, right? So
Yeah.
binary codes are just ones and zeros, like ones on, zeros off, etc., right? So like if you see like the movie The Matrix or any pictures about the Matrix, you'll see the ones and zeros going up and down. And it's because now we're into a digital age, right?
Yeah.
So before digital alarm clocks and all this other stuff came out, you know, chances of you seeing that on a clock was different. But you can still see it on license plates, things of that nature, on a billboard, um, or you'll just get a call from somebody. Like if yours is 444, it might be 404, 444, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or I'll see one coming from something and be one, and it's at the time that I'm thinking of something important. It's almost like there's something out there in the spirit realm telling me you're on track, or pay closer attention to that.
Yes. Yeah.
So that is one.
So
big sign.
synchronicities. I would say that it is when you start to question, who are you? Why am I here? What is my purpose? You realize that this life that you're living is not random.
It is definitely not random. And
Yeah. And you just start to realize, and then when you start to explore that, you start to realize that so many things that you did, you didn't even have to do. It was no purpose in it. Are all the things you thought you were here to do, such as achieve the degree, achieve the job, achieve a certain amount of financial, freedom or something like that. It is not really why you're here.
true. And I think just to expound on that is when you say, who am I?
Yes.
Like realizing that you're more than just your physical body, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm more than everything material. So for me, when I realized, so who am I? That's when I realized that I was just a spiritual being, a part of everything. I'm a part of the biggest energy that's out there, which is God, the force, the source, the ultimate power. Yeah, and that I'm just a small part of that. And with that, I'm a vessel.
Very true. It's like no different than, I like using like the lamp. The lamp has that copper wire that connects up to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a beautiful ornament, but if you don't plug it into its source, it's just a beautiful copper wire connected up to a lamp, and the light doesn't come on unless it's connected to the source. So I'll say something like, we're here in Georgia. He said Georgia Power is the source that we get our energy from here. But
Yeah.
as human beings, our energetic light body, our spiritual soul, our energy comes from the creator of the universe.
And then on top of that, it's not, and it's also knowing, right? It's not just believing it, but it is knowing that I'm not separate from that. I'm not separate from God. I am God. I am the source. I am a part of that energy, and that energy works through me for the rest of humanity, and that we are all connected as one. And I mean, connected to everything, the plants, the trees, the birds, other humans. We're all connected no matter how you look at it.
Energetically. And so it's like that's the whole co-creative, energetic spirit. So it's like, as human beings, we are expressions or children of the Most High God. And we receive stuff through dreams. Like right now, many people going through an awakening, they're having dreams. And some of you are probably having dreams that are very vivid, you know, and some of them are scary, some of them are very revealing. But it's like we need to discuss those. Like we need to be talking to each other, because a lot of times we're having them about other people and messages that we need to give to other people.
And let's
or
talk
to humanity.
and like about dreams. I just want to say that if we know that we are spiritual beings only having a physical existence, so our body is just a physical vessel, it'll go back to dirt and our soul will move on, which is, you know, when we talk to people who have had near death experiences, they always say that they could hover over, you know, what was happening. If they were in the hospital, they could see the doctors and the nurses, and they can hear everything that was being said, because your body just goes back to the earth. But your soul lives on. You are ever existing over and over again. So we're infinite beings, because we never ever, we go on. So I said all that to say that there's a spiritual realm that is occurring around us all the time. We just cannot see it. So when you're having dreams, because that is when our body is quiet, that is when we are most in touch with the spiritual world, that veil is the thinnest. So your dreams can be very prophetic. So it's important to keep a dream journal, because you can have dreams that may not make sense at the time, but it'll make sense 2 months down the road. And you could really have prophetic dreams for yourself, for other people. And if you're praying and meditating and you're looking for an answer, sometimes that's where your answer comes. Yeah.
And that's normally where deceased relatives and loved ones come to visit. Because if they did come visit you in your awakened moments in a physical form, it would probably scare the living daylights out of most people.
Yeah.
And become counterproductive.
Yeah.
But when you're asleep and your soul's awake, kind of like Avatar movie, right? They kind of, in a symbiotic way, showed how they would lay down inside this tube. The physical body would go to sleep, and the soul would enter into the Avatar body. And that's kind of what happens when we're asleep.
Yeah.
And the soul kind of roams off.
There's astral planing. There's all types of stuff. We'll get into that on another podcast. But it's important to write your dreams down, especially if they're very vivid and they're occurring a lot. That is another sign of spiritual awakening and ascension. Let's talk about the third eye and the pineal gland in relation to all that.
So we hear a lot about the third eye. You know, a lot of people see it in some of the occult symbols. Matter of fact, you see a picture on the back of the $1 bill with the eye and the triangle, or they see Jay-Z and different stars, you know, putting their hands in a pyramid sign and putting their eye in it, like the all-seeing eye of Horus or God. You know, something, it come out of ancient Egypt, by the way. But we know that people could take something that's good, use it for bad.
Right.
So I'm not sure exactly what these other people are doing with it. But so the third eye is the gland that sits between your two eyebrows on your forehead.
The pineal gland.
The pineal gland, which is referenced as the third eye, right?
The spiritual eye.
The spiritual eye. So it's like, what, you know, we see things with our two eyes, and we could feel things with our hands, and we could hear things with our ears, etc., with our five senses. But that sixth sense is being able to see and feel
and know
things that, and know exactly things that you wouldn't be able to see with the two eyes. You know, it's really like that clairvoyant knowing and feeling anticipation
Right.
of that spiritual realm exists, or that energetic realm exists. Like you might have a hunch about a person, or walk in a room and you feel the energy. We talked about this one time before, that something bad had occurred or about to occur, or that there's just something that's just not right with this person per se,
Mm-hmm.
that you can't really see with the naked eye, but you could feel it in a spiritual sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that pineal gland, when it's active, is like a grape, like a juicy
Healthy,
grape, a
yes.
healthy grape.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's not healthy or calcified, is more like a raisin. And
Dry.
that can occur from different things such as poor diet, abuse of drugs and alcohol, uh, just living in the worst climates, things of
Mm-hmm.
that nature. So, there's different studies as to, what you could do to keep it whole and healthy, and to have more of these spiritual encounters. Like, for example, we all know that the healthier you are, the better you feel, and the more magic that occurs. And that pineal gland secretes different things like the melatonins and things of that nature. Now today people sell synthetic forms that's based upon that. Now I'm not sure if it's
Mm-hmm.
all synthetic, or
Yeah.
how that actually comes about, but
And as far as the third eye, it's important to realize that that is your spiritual eye. Like that is your intuition. That is where you're getting, I like to call it downloads from your higher self. Your higher self is your God self.
true.
It is your where that you're in relation to the highest power, the source. So your God self, your higher self, is a lot of where we call the spiritual eye, and we can view things that we can't see, but we know it. We know that it exists. So it's important to do things to keep that open, because we know alcohol suppresses your spiritual awareness and awakening. So if you are a heavy alcohol drinker, it's gonna suppress your pineal gland.
Lack of sunlight will suppress it.
Lack of sunlight will suppress it as well.
And bad sound. So things like if you start studying like the pineal gland, it secretes melanin. And it runs deeper than just the surface level on your skin. It's dealing with the internal organs within your body. It's dealing with the way the brain is triggered, etc. So it's more internal than it is an external thing. So it reacts to sunlight and sound. So that's why listening to the proper music, or listening to positive lectures and sermons, things of that nature, those things feed the soul, and then light, like we're hearing everybody talking about, get your vitamin D in, things of that nature. So the melanin allows your body to act like a battery, or a solar panel. You receive the light from the sun,
Yep.
which energizes you, and
Yep.
it's going to produce different chemicals within the body that's going to keep you healthy, and two, keep you on the road of spiritual enlightenment.
It only makes sense, right? So if we're energy, and energy is never
It can only be energy has
transferred.
never been created nor destroyed.
Yeah.
It could only move and change shape and form.
Exactly. So if we're energy and we're vessels of that energy, when we're depleted, we have to kind of re-up our energy, and
True.
so sunlight is a big source of that.
Proper sleep.
Yeah, and it's a good reservoir for keeping that pineal gland third eye open as well. What's another sign of spiritual awakening?
Feeling oneness instead of this rugged individualistic ideology that we're participating here. It's like
Yeah.
like the ego. The ego says
Death of the ego.
right. The ego says I'm Russell and I'm me and this
I'm
person
better
over
than
here.
you.
Right, and it's like this whole just rugged competition type thing. Not saying that sports and so forth are unhealthy, but if you get lost into that and your whole philosophy of life is trying to outdo somebody and be better than them instead of just trying to be the better you every day.
Yeah.
So that you can help not only yourself but help everybody that you come into contact with,
Yep.
right? So that whole oneness, like realizing that I'm not separated from you, or I'm not separated from, the guy down the street, that, like when you meet people, you should want to deposit into them. You know what I'm saying? You want to treat them as you want to be treated,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully that spreads more of a germ than COVID. Like
Mm-hmm.
spreading love, like simple things like saying hello and opening doors for people, things of that nature. I think those type things, once they start to happen more, and they are starting to happen, even in the midst of everything that we're doing. That's why I really don't like some of the ideas of this 6 feet of separation and just going on to the next 3 or 4 years without people touching and all this other
Yeah.
stuff. To
I have my
me,
view on that.
that that's totally
podcast.
anti everything, anti God or whatever.
And so that's important, right? And you have to, if we as spiritual beings are living in love, all right? And if we know that there's two emotions in this world, love and fear, you have to ask yourself, is this statement, is what this person saying, is this a fear-based statement or a love-based statement? And I'm not even going to say anything. All I'm going to say is that if somebody tells you, I don't even think shaking hands should be a part of the new norm, is that fear-based or is that love-based? And you can make your own decisions from there.
That is so true.
That's all I'm saying.
Common sense has to become common at some point.
Yeah. Another sign of spiritual awakening is when there is a increased sense of peace and love internally.
Very true.
Now, I have to say that in a spiritual awakening, you don't wake up in peace and love. I would say you have to go through what I call the dark night of the soul. And the dark night of the soul is when a lot of hurt and pain and things that you've swept under the rug for years all come to the surface. But it's all coming to the surface to be healed. And because you can't get to love and peace without going through the healing. You just can't do it. So a lot of all that old buried hurt, it could be from your childhood, it could be from past relationships, it could be from, just whatever that you never dealt with, it's going to come to the surface.
Very true. You got to deal with your personal demons.
Yeah. And so the dark night of the soul, it could last a day. It could last a few weeks. It could last a few months. It could last a couple years. It just depends on how much. And sometimes you're healing things from past lives, and you're also healing generational things that your ancestors have gone through and that you have to heal. And so that's why it's important. I always tell people, pray for generational strongholds to be released and to be healed from that, because you could be carrying around your mother's pain. You could be carrying around your father's pain, and you don't even know that. You could be born into this world. Yeah. There was a lot of women in slavery who were put through some very horrific things and torture, and those baby, it was a pregnant slave woman, that baby was born under fear. So the baby born in fear don't even know why, could be carrying around fear in the DNA. So all that stuff can come up for healing during the dark night of the soul. And it's important to, thrust into God, get with some very spiritual leaders or people that understand where you are and that can lead you in love and not fear.
It's time to heal.
Exactly. So, anything else you want to add to signs of spiritual awakening?
I think some of the other signs are people begin to go within than without. And what I mean by that is, like now, we've been at least one solid month where a lot of people are trapped in solitude. And, as a man, it's like I'm a big football, basketball fan, and, not having that to fall back. I hate watching reruns, but it's like, without that, without, having to get up and go into an office and work 9 to 5, things of that nature, we all have so much more time to go within. And I'm not sure how anybody at this time is not listening to their thoughts and trying to figure out, not only what's going on outside the outside world, but what's going on in our lives personally. Like people are reevaluating, maybe what they do for a living, like new hobbies they want to take on, new business ventures, new relationships, or even severing ties, in some of their friendships, relationships, business ties, etc., and doing things that are more meaningful and more impactful. Um,
And a part of awakening is also realizing that you may not be like a relationship, this relationship that you're in, it has ran its course. In order for you to get to your higher self, your God self, your most authentic self. That's another thing. Authenticity is very important during spiritual awakening too.
Very much so.
That you've come to the end of the road in a certain relationship.
Very
And that's
true.
okay. Like, I think that's okay. Like, I think sometimes we just suffer in things way too long.
Yeah, I think that's true too. I think what happens is sometimes you just have to know that it's okay to not be okay. And I think people always want to feel like they're in control. There's nothing wrong with me. All eyes are on me.
And that's ego.
It's ego.
That's ego.
But the only way to heal is to go through your pain, turn your pain into power.
Yeah.
And I think right now everybody is going to be faced with it on an individual level, and we're all going to be faced with it on a collective level. And I just think that we all at this time we really need to come together as a people. Racism, sexism, like all the isms, classism, all these things have to burn away, because it's not sustainable going into this new energy and this new world. And I think that most people are so used to the matrix that we've been living in there, and under this type of control, and what's fed through media, what's taught in the classroom. We have been bombarded with a lot of misinformation. And so it's going to be a mass unlearning and relearning for everyone. I don't care if you have a PhD or what degree that you have. It's like, and not to minimize it, it's like that just means that we mastered whatever was laid out in front of us. You can have a great memory and remember a whole bunch of lies. There's a difference between being educated and being intelligent.
Yeah. I just kind of live by it's so much more about who you become in the process versus, who, are defining who I am by the things that are outside of me. So it's so much more about who I become and knowing why I went through the trials that I went through, knowing that it's all a part of the journey to evolve spiritually.
Very true. So,
yeah,
like they say, it's not so much about the destination, it's about the journey and who you become in the process.
Exactly.
Because the whole thing, if it is a spiritual journey, it's an infinite journey. It doesn't even end with this lifetime. And, that's whether or not people want to believe in reincarnation or whatever. It's like, this is not the end of everything.
Yeah.
So when we say transition, if you say somebody made their transition, that's exactly what it is. It's in the transition. You should celebrate their life and that you we're given that time, that God gave us that time with that person
on the physical, and that your relationship could still continue in the spiritual. And it's actually a lot more loving, and it's a lot, because you're not bound by the pains or the hurts or whatever, you and that person that went on had on the physical realm. But in the spiritual, it's all love and peace.
And I think that we're going to see that, just like a lot of things, we see a lot of new inventions pop up. And, it's not that these things weren't possible before. It's like we just didn't think about them. You know what I mean?
And that's a part of awakening.
Right. So now we're coming into this age where the planets at a certain part in the galaxy and different glands in our body are ruled by these different planets. And now, they said before we're using like 1/10 of our brain. Now we're going to start using more of our brain. So you're going to start seeing more things that appear to be supernatural, but the science and technology of it all will become more commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be so woo-woo and so, you know what I'm saying? Like before it was like one or two people could tap into the spiritual realm and could talk to these spirits and give messages and so forth. But it's like when it gets to the point where, we're all in these different dimensions, like the planet itself, they say, is going from the third through the fourth and the fifth dimension, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Into this new age or era, right? And, that's why it's heating up for one. But that heat is a different type of heat, a different type of ultraviolet energy that's changing different glands in the body that's going to cause us to become a different type of human being.
That's
like
true.
We aren't the same human being that we were, say, 10, 15,000 years ago.
No.
Like we're still in this evolutionary phase onto something greater.
Yeah. It's just important to keep that spiritual part open, that third eye, your spiritual eye, because it, especially culturally, it has been suppressed purposely, because that is a lot of where our power comes from. Because once you understand that third eye, I mean, you get into some real miracles, and that I personally have witnessed.
That is very true. And the powers that be that want to control people, the first thing that they do is destroy their libraries, destroy their history. Because by doing that, now you can feed them with whatever you want to feed them, or you can create this time gap that it's going to take for them to rebuild it, right?
Yeah.
So I think now, like with the internet, things of that nature, because a lot of people, there's a study that showed that 65% of the people, once they graduate from high school, never read a book.
Yeah.
So it's like, but the thing is, everybody's online on their phone or whatever. So just out of convenience, they may read something that's short or whatever. But a lot of information is being disseminated. Some of it not so good, not true, but there's still a lot of good information that's been exchanged over the years, that now you have a mass of people that are awakened to a whole different reality. That's why now the same thing that they did back in the 80s with the AIDS epidemic or whatever, if people go back and look, it was almost identical. And, some of the players were involved during that time as well. But it's like that same drama now is being played out, but the people are more consciously aware. And they're like, hey, no, we're not going to play that game this time. And that's where you see this big information war and censoring and, the disinformation thing that's going on, social media. So people, please, like if all you do is watch CNN, you're really not getting the full gist of what's going on. If you only watch Fox, you're not getting the full gist. If you're like blindly devoted to the Republican or the Democratic Party, you're not getting 100%.
I don't think at this point it like Democratic, Republicans, like that should not be what it's about at this point. No. Like it like that stuff right there is only keeping us separated on a deeper level. Like, it is so much more deeper than that. And again, looking at it with your spiritual eye is so much deeper than that.
At what point does our religious philosophy be love? At what point does our political affiliation be based upon truth and love? You know, because it's like, what would Jesus do? Everybody says they're a follower of Jesus. So how could you be blindly devoted to something that is not for the upliftment of humanity?
And you know, again, you just said it, right? We really have to think about unlearning old beliefs and patterns just because it was.
Right.
And you really have to go within and be like, wisdom and knowledge from that your higher self. Like, what is the higher self telling you? And sometimes it's a lonely road and you gonna stand against everybody else.
And you're going to be persecuted.
And yeah,
you're going to be called crazy.
You might be. But especially
but you're in good
now.
Company, though.
Especially now, it's so important to really, really not look on the outside of what you're seeing and go within. It's so important, and I think this is a part of the awakening. This is what we need everybody to do culturally, because there's a lot of things happening spiritually. A lot.
And this is the time when we need those third eyes activated.
Yeah.
So proper diet, you know, listening to some good soothing music, that's good soul music.
Yeah. And what's some tools? Like, because, you know, we said all this, like what's going on. We also want to kind of give some tools in how to get through this as well.
Right. I could, like, some of the things I just mentioned work for me. Yeah, different people may have different perspectives. Like, one, I really only listen to music that I feel that feeds my soul. I listen to music of love, hope, inspiration, things of that nature. You know, because the rest of it. Now, when I go to work out, I'll put on something that gives me more of that warrior mentality, because it's like me and the weights or the Stairmaster or the treadmill or whatever. But you know, when I'm just like cooking around the house or just in relax mode or whatever, it's something that soothes my soul, that puts me in that harmonious like aspect of nature.
Right.
So that is, I really don't watch that much television outside of sports, so television really has not been on.
Yeah, I don't watch TV.
Yeah, so that, you know, if I do watch something, it's usually documentaries or something that's going to feed my mind, you know, something of value. Every now and then I may turn on Channel Zero just for the heck of it to see what the hype is about something, but that is so rare, very rare.
What is Channel Zero?
Think about it. Like, if I get nothing out of it.
Oh. What is Channel Zero?
Channel Zero.
Okay, so
Atlanta Housewives.
Okay, Channel Zero.
Not that I watch that, but it's.
I get it.
Yeah, things of that nature.
I always, I think how you go to sleep at night and how you wake up is so important. There's a lot to say that your subconscious mind is most important right before you fall asleep. So it's important to maybe fall asleep with some really good conscious things. You know, whatever you're trying to do, it's good to listen to some real healthy, high vibrational things right before you fall asleep. And in the morning, how you set that day and that emotion that you're in is going to be how your day is going to roll out. So people are so accustomed to waking up, jumping out of bed, checking their emails, checking social media, turning on the news. Like, when you open your eyes, like literally when I open my eyes, I'm listening for the birds, because that kind of tells me, you know, nature's out there. I lay in my bed and I literally become aware of my thoughts, because that's how you become self-aware. You cannot become self-aware if you do not sit with yourself. You have to sit with yourself and your thoughts alone.
And don't allow the media and all this other stuff to bombard your
Yeah,
mind first thing in the morning.
exactly.
Because it could dictate your day. Like it
It
can put you in a
dictates
bad
your
mood.
energy. Yeah,
It can put you in a bad mood.
it does. It dictates your energy. And I believe every single moment we could choose. Even if we chose fear 10 minutes ago, we can come back right now and choose love in what we're thinking and doing and saying to other people. But when you wake up, you really should become aware of your thoughts. And then you should also become grateful for non-material things. If you could list 5 to 7 non-material things that you are grateful for, it's gonna set a tone. It's gonna set you in a vibration um, that's just amazing.
And it's gonna open you up to receive even more.
Exactly.
Because it shows that you are thankful for those things you have.
Yeah, and then I always set intentions. I don't do anything without an intention. And if I'm asked to do something, so say you asked me, Janie, let's go for a walk or something. What is the intention? Like, why am I doing this? Am I just bored? Do I really want to have a conversation with Russell? Does he need me to help him with something? What are the intentions on what we're doing?
Right.
Like, if you're posting something on social media, what is the intention behind it? And what are you putting out? Are you putting out love or fear? Because what you put out is going to come back to you. Law of reciprocity?
We ought to have like this National Love Day, not Valentine's, but National Love, where people just bombard social media with nothing but messages of love and hope and inspiration.
Yeah, and I know it sounds very cliche, like love, 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 but it is truly the awakened soul, and it's truly enlightenment. It's truly getting to that vibration of peace and love, because that's the journey.
If God is love, why would you not want to connect to God?
And yeah, that's all about being that connection. So those are just some tools, during awakening, and how to just stay in peace and love, because some of it is bouncing from that lower vibration, those lower energies, and people oh my God, because you're going to be so sensitive to energies, and people will come around you and you're going to feel all their hurt, their pain, their hatred, their shame, their doubt, their insecurities.
Vampires.
And there's energy vampires, and you're just going to want to be like, I can't deal. And it's okay to put that thing around you, around your energy field, and not let nothing come in. You got to protect your energy until you can do it in a very loving way.
Very true.
I think everything can be said and done in love, but you have to protect your energy, especially right now. You have to. People coming to you with some negative stuff, shut it down.
Very true.
Yeah.
In prayer and meditation, we can never leave that out.
No.
In the mornings and at night, prayer and meditation, like they said, prayer is when we're talking to God and we're asking God for things, or just saying thank you. And meditation is when God talks to us, and God is not a screamer, God is a whisperer.
Oh, so God is always talking. You just have to be awakened and aware of how he's talking to you. And we're all here for different purposes. We're all called for different things, and you're getting those downloads every day. You just have to be aware of it.
And like they say, the teacher will appear when the student is ready.
And don't forget, a lot of times the higher power speaks to us through other people.
Very true. So
keep that in mind. If you prayed on something and somebody came along and just, dropped some crazy knowledge to you, know that that's probably what you was waiting to hear.
Well, one of my sayings is that a broke clock is even right twice a day.
Yep.
So it's like sometimes we just got to humble ourselves, because it could be that guy in your neighborhood that's the neighborhood drunk.
Oh.
The guy that's sleeping under
God
the bridge.
uses everybody.
They have some wisdom, because there's a reason why they ended up the way they ended up. And they may tell you just to stay away or don't do what they did. And that in itself is valuable.
Yeah.
So it's like we should always be open to information and not block out messages because of where the message is coming from. And another thing, one of my good friends had mentioned to me one time before, he said that the truth is the truth because it's true, not because of who says it.
That's true.
And I think that we need to get out of this notion as to, only accepting truth where it comes from, like I said before, whether it comes from my political party or it came from my race or my sex or my class, status or whatever. It's like we need to get out of all that. That stuff is not sustainable in this new reality that we're moving into. And the thing is, whether you want to believe it or not, it's going to happen. You can sit back and watch or participate or whatever, but we're all going to be faced to deal with it at some level. Everybody has their own demons they got to deal with. It's a great awakening, so it's like it's going to be a struggle to get to the other side. But that's where the whole dark night of the soul comes from, because you're going to be, you're going to have to question some of the information that you had and some of the affiliations that you had, whether or not they're going to be right for you to move along. And a lot of times people just can't give up those old habits or those old ways of life for something that's new and better. They rather, one last thing, they rather deal with their known demons than to deal with.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say the patterns, right? Like, how do you know you in an old pattern, in an old paradigm? Because you're repeating the same thing every day, all day. You're saying the same things all the time. And you may not recognize it in yourself, but you could recognize it in somebody else. Like, you've talked to somebody and they're telling you the same thing over and over again. They are stuck in a cycle. They're stuck in an old paradigm that has to be shifted. And a lot of times, sometimes it's something pretty, drastic that sometimes have to happen for people to wake up.
Unfortunately, but yeah, because a lot of times people can't look at other people and learn from their mistakes. Sometimes people have to put their hand on the stove to realize that it's hot.
That's true.
And that's unfortunate, but there was a time when ignorance was bliss, but today ignorance can cost people their lives. So it's like we need to really pay attention to what's going on out there. And, we need to continue to share information. I think a lot of people have been sharing some valuable information about diet and things like that, how to fight the virus or whatever. But, when this thing is gone, we can't go back to business as usual. Hopefully a lot of people are taking the heed to change, because the earth is changing. The earth is changing. We're moving throughout the galaxy. Everything is changing. If anything's constant, it's change.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the earth is waking up, and those people who are asleep on the earth is going to shake you.
And we typically attract who we are, right? Not what we want. But as these paradigms are shifting, you might have been shifted to a new level or something like that. So where you once was attracting the same person that was vibing on your same vibration, that could now totally be completely different. And that's okay too.
That is so true. You don't get what you want, you get what you are. You're going to attract what you are.
Yeah.
So we have to become, if you want love, if you want peace, if you want great friendship, if you want whatever it is that you're seeking, it's seeking you, but you have to become it. We can't just talk it. The universe responds to what you feel, not what you say. So if you're saying one thing out your mouth, but deep down inside of your heart, you feel that you're not qualified or that you're not worthy in some shape, form, or fashion, or your ego's blocking your blessings or whatever, it's like the universe is an interactive electronic plasmic field, and we'll see that with a lot of technologies and so forth that are being developed, right? But the whole thing is, it's like emotion is energy in motion. So we need to watch what we think, Our thoughts become things.
Oh, what you speak.
And the whole energy field, it rides on this energy field. So watch what we say. You can say things, you can't get some of these words back once they're said.
That's true. So to kind of sum it up, this current great awakening of humanity, this mass awakening that we're currently experiencing, the shift in energy, the shift of the earth, everything. We just kind of went through a few things as far as what are some of the things you could be experiencing in your own life, to let you know that you're riding the wave, you're on it, you're on track. Or, are you still asleep? And it's time for you to wake up. It's time for you to shift your reality, shift your consciousness, go from knowing, and just
go from believing to knowing.
Yeah, going from believing to knowing. Anything else, Russell?
Well, just to kind of sum up everything else that we've been talking about, is that this time was talked about. It was predicted that this mass awakening would occur. Like when, it seems like there's no hope, and it seems like everything's falling apart, and that the world's ending. It is ending, so to speak. Because,
but the age.
Right, it doesn't mean that everybody's dying and going off the face of the earth or whatever. Will there be some death? Perhaps there will be more death. But the thing is, once the veil's been lifted about what has really been going on behind the scenes, and I strongly believe that in the upcoming months we're going to start to see some things occur on the news that people's mouths are going to drop. There's some things that are going on behind the scenes that are diabolical, horrific, the worst thing you could ever think of, and unimaginable things are going to be brought to light.
But it's going to be
the
good.
The changes, right. Ultimately, the changes that are going to occur afterward are going to be tremendous. Like technological advancements, we all knew about Tesla and free energy and things of that nature, that a lot of that stuff wasn't released. We'll probably start to see a lot of that stuff being released and no longer suppressed, along with many other technological advancements. And I think it's going to advance humanity to like heights that we've never seen before. So that's why I'm just saying people really need to check themselves. A lot of the old paradigms are not going to be sustainable in this new world. And, I'm just looking forward to
don't be afraid of the change.
Yeah, don't embrace change.
Surrender to the change.
You have to, because it's inevitable. It's inevitable. So
it's a love thing. It's a love thing. I think it's going to be amazing. Just like anything, you go through the pain, but then on the other side, it's beautiful, and you are glad you went through it.
And any advice that I could give, be attached to nothing and open to everything.
Yep.
Because we're about to go on a ride.
Yep. All right, so this has been another episode of Matters of the Heart and Soul podcast, where we talk about everything of the heart and soul. We just finished talking about the great awakening of humanity. Check us out on our next episode. Make sure you share this podcast. This is one of those also God-given missions, and that's what it's really about for us. All right, talk to you guys later.